Welcome to Inspire and Move, the show that inspires you to create, connect, and grow. I'm going to bring you meaningful conversations, aha moments, and all the motivation you need to uplevel every part of your life. I'm Ali Aruda, founder of Inspire and Move, and your personal hype girl. I've gone from fashion school to celebrity stylist to corporate marketing to brick and mortar entrepreneurship with my husband, each time learning incredible lessons how to pivot, reimagine, and implement the steps to become successful. I am passionate about inspiring others to live their best life, a life of joy. We have the power to design a life that we love because life is too short not to. The best part is that you weren't meant to do this alone. If you feel like you were meant for more, let me ride shotgun with you, and together, let's get you to where you want to go. Hello everyone, welcome back to the show. I am your host, Ali Aruda, and I am here with my executive co-host.
Nice, it's a good title. I'll take it.
I just really flowed into that one.
Nice.
And I have a more normal voice this episode, so that's exciting.
Yeah.
Lots of things to be excited about.
Absolutely.
We have had a nice little weekend doing some sort of Christmassy things, and yesterday we went for a lovely day date to the city of Toronto, which is not too far from where we are, and had sort of our list of things we wanted to do, and one of them was to go to a beautiful hotel lobby for a cocktail. And we chose the Four Seasons. It was lovely, and sat down, ordered our drink, a little snack from after the shopping, and we met the most interesting man. And that's kind of what has inspired us to do this episode. And it's so interesting because I feel like you and I both had a moment where we said, this is a moment that we have friends that experience, and then we hear them talk about those experiences on their podcasts. And in the moment, I was like, oh my gosh, this is literally a podcast episode right here. And it was so interesting because we saw this gentleman come in by himself, an older gentleman, really nicely dressed in a button-down shirt, a sport jacket, I feel like you would call it in sort of the 70, 80 plus demographic, and nice glasses, solid head of hair, ordered a lovely glass of red wine, seemed to be a regular at the Four Seasons because he got greeted by the first name, and the server knew that he really likes bar snacks, so they brought the bar snacks over right away, and he became so intriguing to both of us because I feel like you and I then went to the washroom independently and both noticed this gentleman, and we're like, you are intriguing, and you kind of remind us of Arthur from The Holiday. I don't know how, don't know why, but that was the vibe we were both getting.
You're giving away too much here because this guy's got layers. And,
yeah.
And so I think with him, what was so interesting is, and not necessarily him specifically, but these people come up, and obviously we meet people all the time.
Yeah. And
we have conversations with people every single day. But it was very poignant, the kinds of conversations we had with him yesterday specifically that were completely unprovoked. It's not like we were feeding him softball questions that were looking to satisfy things that we were looking to have satisfied on our end. The conversations kind of flowed naturally. He asked a lot of questions, came to a lot of conclusions, deductions, whatever it might be, on his own, and helped fill in a lot of things, or not necessarily fill in, but shed light on a lot of things that you and I have certainly chatted about. And this is a guy, he's 85. We asked him, and he's 85 years old. And this guy could not be happier to talk to us, I think, or talk in general, quite frankly, because we were supposed to be there on day date.
Yeah.
And I don't think we had more than 37 words between you and I exclusively before we started talking to a gentleman named Mark.
Unfortunately, that was just about what we wanted to order as a snack and what drink we were going to order.
So it started like this. We ordered a, what would you call it?
Dips, like a trio of dips that comes with pita.
Came with pita. Now, we said we're going to exchange one of those pitas. Comes with two pitas. We're going to exchange one of those pitas for some crudités, a bunch of vegetables. And so that's what came to the table. I guess he had not seen that before, although he had been there many times, it seemed. Not that version of it. So you can see he asked the waiter while looking at our table, what is that? And the waiter said, it's the dip trio, or whatever you want to call it. And I turned to him and I said, before you order it, just so you know, we subbed out one of the pitas for veggies. So if this is what you're interested in, you just got to make sure you let them know that you need veggies, not the way it comes was just to PETA. It sounds like a ridiculously boring story. But the point
Yeah,
is...
it's a punchline, babe.
The point is, that was the part of the discussion that, I guess, triggered the next 45 minutes of him feeling as comfortable as he was ultimately to explain not just the damn near the entirety of his whole life story, but then dug into where we are in our lives and said some things that shed some light on where we want to go next and made it much more digestible coming from a man who has done and still is doing a lot in comparison to what we've been able to do in our lives that are literally our 2 lifetimes combined are not as long as what he has been doing this for on his own.
Yeah, 85 years old,
Yeah.
still working, and nicely dressed, still like lives on his own, sounds like he drives.
Yeah, and so he was asking us what we did. We explained to him, what we've done at Benchmark, how we've grown it, some of the BS that obviously came through at the genesis of our business, but more so not just what we're doing currently, but what we want to do moving forward, where we want to go, literally and physically, where we want to go with Benchmark, beyond just where we're at here now. And he was very intrigued, and he asked a lot of great questions, and he made it seem as if we're giving it too much concern about why we haven't done it yet. And this is specific to you and I, but you could almost look at this in a different way, where what I kind of got out of this is we kind of almost get in our own way. We almost overthink about what the next step is in the way of it being an overly heavy step or something that the wrong step changes the rest of our life. And it might not be the right way to think about it, because the way he spoke was, you need how much to raise to do this next part of what you're thinking of? And I say it to him. And he looks at me right in the eye. You weren't here for that. You'd gone to the washroom. And I told him how much I think we needed. And, a couple clarifying questions, and we got to the root of what that number is ultimately. And he looks at me and he says, so what the hell's stopping you? And it's just one of those things where you hear it and you realize, I don't know. Like, do I not believe in what we can do? Of course not. Do I not know that we obviously have a community that would allow for it? Sure we would. Would we have the know-how? Most of it, the stuff we don't know. You think I'm scared that we wouldn't figure it out? Of course we would. It wouldn't be the first time. So what the hell's actually, besides dollars, obviously, what's stopping you? And if it is dollars, why would that be the thing that stops you when you've got access to other ways around it? The way he came about it was, if this is what you guys see yourselves as doing and being able to impact so many more people and extend or expand on what you've built up to this point, you have all of this know-how, all of this will, all of this ability, all of this energy, and dollars are in the way. That's the easiest part of the whole freaking thing. And he is to add some light on this, what he does for a living is he is in the stock market and has been in the stock market since he was 16 years old. So that is 69 years that he's been in the stock market. He has raised hundreds of millions of dollars for various raises. He's been a part of multiple IPOs. They have had multiple books that have been presented to him to write about him. Screenplays, like Hollywood screenplays, that have been presented to be written about him. His name is Arthur, which is ridiculous because, as Ali touched off the top, he reminded us exactly of like that Hollywood director legend, very low-key, you'd never know character in The Holiday, who ends up winning all these awards and is kind of Hollywood renowned, and this cute old man, probably in his 80s as well, and his name was Arthur as well.
Yeah.
Crazy, right?
Yeah. Oh my God, it was nuts. And I think there's also, I know we have more that we want to share and dive into here, but I think also sort of like a little side nugget or side piece of this topic and discussion in this episode is also about practicing kindness. That, he shared a little bit about his personal life, kind of before we got into the more professional areas and our dreams and goals and all of that, but how he's never had a partner. He's never really met somebody that was the one for him.
He said he could have gotten married a bunch of times.
Yeah,
but wasn't the right
he
girl.
He just shared some interesting stories and topics that gave me a couple good laughs. But it was also just about practicing kindness where, you know, you recognize that Matt and I are there for a day date. We are there to just spend quality time with each other and a beautiful day that we sort of curated with one another that we want to enjoy. But also we meet this really fascinating man, and maybe he just needs to chat with someone for 45 minutes.
And you know what? It's the week before Christmas. And you know, you see
He doesn't
lots of
have
families
anyone.
all around and other couples that are there. And this man comes in on his own. And, you know, not that he's shy about being there on his own or ordering on his own. He's clearly used to it. But I personally couldn't help but feel like this guy, I think, needs to speak to somebody, needs to talk to somebody. Because he's there on his own in the middle of a Saturday afternoon downtown Toronto, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that you and I are going to head home and we're going to enjoy a beautiful dinner together and a whole evening. We know what Christmas movie we're going to watch. But if Arthur doesn't have that and he just needed to have some camaraderie and a good conversation in a beautiful setting for 30, 45 minutes, we can give him that time.
Happy to.
And I think it was a nice little reminder, especially in, you know, the spirit of Christmas, the spirit of giving and love and kindness. It was just this amazing little moment, a reminder for us that we absolutely have the time to share with him and have conversation. And then not to mention, he happened to be really, really fascinating with really great conversation. And he dropped this like mic drop moment that had Matt and I both just sort of deer in the headlights of, you know, acknowledging that, oh my gosh, that is a really great statement. Could you please say it again? I think both of us even repeated it. And that was,
out of the room, out of the deal. And at what point in the conversation were we talking about this? I would imagine it's something in the way of expanding our next steps in the way of business, or what the next things are going to be ultimately, even outside of benchmark proper, right? Just other things that we were interested in. And he was talking about all the business deals that he's been a part of and the things that he's been able and been successful to close as well, and that he's self-professed an excellent closer. And I believe it. Charismatic as all hell. I'd listen to what he says. So I'm hanging on to every word. And, you know, it is almost a play, almost a riff on, you know, what we've always said, what we've heard and believed for so long with, you know, getting into the right rooms. That's, you know, part of the most powerful thing that you can do to move your own needles, to get into the right rooms. This was almost a little bit of a play beyond that, albeit not exactly the same, in the sense where it still requires you having to be present, essentially, right? That's kind of the idea. So say it one more time.
Out of the room, out of the deal.
Basically, when we spoke to him about it and asked him to kind of clarify what he meant by it, it was more along the lines of, you know, if you're looking to forward propel yourself in anything, and we don't have to be talking about, you know, necessarily anything where it's definitively this one move is going to change the trajectory of my career. Just full swipe and it's done. No. It might take micro steps, right? Baby steps to get to that point. And one of those steps is this quasi room of sorts, right? It might not even be a physical four-walled physical space like a room would typically be. It's putting yourself in scenarios, in positions, in discussions that if you're not in that and you are living within the constraints of just yourself, how in the world are you able to do anything beyond what you've only been able to do by yourself? Up to that point, right? Nobody is self-made, doesn't exist. You always need the help or a hand or a partnership to grow any part of what it is you find is worth growing, whether it be your family, whether it be at your career, whether it be your friendship circle. None of that's expanded by yourself. It's literally not possible. Customer bases, all of these things require the buy-in of other people. So to get to that point of growth, you have to put yourself in that hypothetical room. If you're not in the room, you're not in the deal. You cannot expand the deal. You can't get to your level of success if you're not in the room. And the rooms get bigger, obviously, as you continue down this path. But it starts with one step at a time of getting in that room so that you can be in the deal. Part of the conversation, at least, of being in that deal. Otherwise, it's kind of like you're never winning a lottery unless you buy a ticket. You talk about it all day long. But if you don't buy the ticket, how the hell are you going to win other than just wishing it? You've got to do something about
My dad loved saying that.
It's the truth.
You can't win it if you ain't in it.
That's right.
There's another banger for you, mic drop moment.
That's awesome.
But I think it is so true, and how, you know, you're not in the room, you're out of the game. I think there's a lot of ways you could riff on that just bold statement, that it is a very powerful, and we were saying this even before we hit record, what a powerful reframe of something that we are really passionate about, and we talk about a lot, even just on this very young podcast. But I think we're confident in talking about it because we've really been putting that into action this past year, and already are setting ourselves up to do that again in 2024, and getting ourselves in different rooms, having different conversations to move the needle in a different direction, because that needle has moved so much just this past year by doing that and being in that room and making those connections and making those, like, taking those action steps and making those big changes.
And look, it's likely, you know, when you think about making that step, about getting into that room, about having that conversation, whatever that might look like, the surefire way you know that that's what you should be doing is that it feels uncomfortable. That the idea of doing X before getting into that room, or as a means of getting into that room, should feel uncomfortable. It should be a stretch, whether that be professionally, financially, socially. We're introverts, certainly more me so than you. You do a great job of putting out a lot of amazing energy out there all the time. But what's your favorite time of the week?
Friday night.
Friday night.
When we stay home.
That's right. Friday night, pizza, salad, dogs, movie. And that's it. That's the best part of the week. We're introverts at heart. But that's not to say that you don't recognize these opportunities to do great things or move the needle towards doing great things. And it first requires you understanding that this next move is not easy. If it was, everyone would already have done it 1,000 times before you, 1,000,000 times, 1,000,000,000 times before you, if it was easy, right? The idea of saying, you know, I would really love to be there, whether it be a physical space outside of where you live or outside of the town that you're in, whether it be it's a job you're looking at, a gym you want to join, a social group of some sorts you want to ride along with. I mean, I think of this retreat that we're putting on as well. The curated group of people in this retreat, this dozen or so people of people that are coming, they're amazing, like amazing. We're talking entrepreneurs, we're talking Olympians, we're talking different levels of professionals, whether they be in their 20s or in their 60s and everything in the middle. And they're from all over the place. It's not like you have to be 30 and a benchmark member in order to come to this. It's far from it, actually.
For sure.
My point with that is we certainly can have these conversations with as many people. And obviously, if you're hearing this podcast, then you likely know through following Ali or maybe myself that we've had this retreat going on for a little bit. And certainly, you know, the easy thing to look at is like, that looks like it's going to be great. And of course it is. It's in Arizona in a 5-star luxury wellness resort with amazing food and drink. And the price point, from a value standpoint, we feel is all there. I've been on retreats that are 2-3 times as much as what this would cost specifically. But that's neither here nor there. My point is, one might look at this and say, oh, that looks amazing. I wish I could. But the reality is, in a way or not, you could do it. And it doesn't have to be spending the money. It doesn't have to be spending the however many thousands of dollars to make this happen. That's one small part of this, where if you think the money's not the issue, the timing is not the issue, but maybe it's just not ideal for me to leave for those 3 days or 4 days. It's never going to be perfect timing. You have to make it so that it becomes a priority of yours. Now, you take the retreat out of this, because that is maybe a slightly larger version of that. Maybe it's a conversation someone just needs to have with their boss to say, I should be valued more than X. And you put it off and you put it off and you put it off. You know that then that step is the next step to set you up for whatever success that it is that you're needing to be for you, because you know what you bring to the table. But with you putting it off for a matter of 1 week, 1 month, 1 year, what have you lost out on? Financially, opportunity-wise, growth-wise, the people you would then meet from the idea of advancing in that workspace, all because you didn't want to take the uncomfortable step of having the conversation. You bled it out too long.
Well, that's often the most frightening step is making the decision that you're uncomfortable, but then you make the decision and you move through the decision, and maybe, depending on what it is, there is something that you have to put down financially. So that right there is going to be one of the hardest parts of the process. Then you're going to need to show up, and the night before or the morning of might be slightly scary, but then you're going to walk into that room, experience opportunity, whatever it may be, and then you're going to feel the accomplishment that you are there.
Yeah.
And then it's time to enjoy and immerse yourself and be a part of whatever it is, whatever room, experience, opportunity that you've made this intentional decision to be a part of.
Absolutely.
And sometimes it really takes sacrifices as well. That, you might want to go on a European adventure in the summer, but you might also want to open a business, and you probably can't do both. And that life is full of hard decisions and tough moments. And sometimes it does just come down to that, where you need to make the choice of what do you want to do now? Like, what action do you want to take now to then create your really bright future?
What's going to move the needle?
Yeah.
I mean, we talked about this just yesterday, and certainly in this past year. I had a big birthday this summer, obviously, at 40, and we had talked for, a couple of years leading up to that. What do I want to do for my 40th? And it kind of always landed itself back with us being somewhere in Europe.
And a big party.
And all that is to say, we did neither.
Yeah.
And the reason why is in this year, in 2023, for us, and it's not the same for everybody, of course, but for us, we have budgets to work within as well. And so the idea of taking the amount of money that we needed to go and do this trip and then also host this party, when we're also staring down the barrel of these self-development investments that we could also make, or that we could make in lieu of, because the dollars are very similar. But we know that going down that road would effectively mean we're one step back to be 10 steps further ahead at some point. It's an investment. So, selfishly, what would we have loved to have done in that moment? Book the friggin' tickets to Italy. That's what we would have liked to have done, obviously. Amalfi has my heart.
Oh, yeah.
But, as do many other cities in that country. But all that to be said, you know where we didn't go this year? Italy. Because we decided to put the money into these self-development courses and in-person situations that, again, to your point, you have to make the investment. In this case, it was dollars. Certainly time, but it was dollars, where we had to decide to spend the money in order for us to do that thing. But it doesn't have to come down to that. It could, to your exact point, it's also about just committing the time to it and making that decision about spending a different currency versus dollars and cents that might have the same, if not even a greater impact on determining what the next 6 months looks like for you and for the rest of your life after that.
Well, it's playing the long game. I guess the short game, in a sense, could have been, you know what, babe, you're turning 40. You only turn 40 once. We're going to have the party. We're going to take the trip, and then we're going to figure it all out later. But we want to play the long game, and we are playing the long game. We've made sacrifices this past year. We've already made some decisions, and we have more to make and more to come for 2024 of things that we're really building. We are building and growing, and it's not, just a 6-month stint. We've had our sprint moments, but this is the long game. And sometimes those decisions really, really come along the road of that journey in the long game. And it's important to have that sort of North Star. Like, what are you working towards? And always remembering that, because there will be those sacrifices that you have to make and those hard decisions. And to Matt's point, like being uncomfortable, all of those things. But that all comes back to, if you are out of the room,
you're out of the deal. It's really kind of it.
It's just so...
It encapsulates everything, right?
Totally. And how you can reframe it. And maybe that's what you need. If you're on this journey right now and you think you're playing the short game, but maybe you actually need to be playing the long game, think about some of these things of what rooms and situations are you in? And if you're not in those rooms and situations and immersing yourself, what are you doing? Like, what are you leaving on the table? What opportunities might be lost because you're not doing that? And this is, as I said, life is full of hard decisions and hard moments and tough moments. But sometimes you might have to make that hard moment that maybe you don't go on that trip, you don't go on that girls' night or weekend, whatever it may be, because you are working for something bigger. And that is the North Star. That is your purpose. what you are working towards, and you want to get in those rooms so that you get that deal, or you launch that business, or you hit $1 million, or whatever your big jackpot is that you're working towards, that you are playing all of these cards that are in your favor.
Yeah, and I don't think that this is something that everybody out there is going to hear and run with. This information, this advice of sorts, isn't something that is for everybody. I have a feeling that if people are listening to your podcast, the people who are listening to this podcast, then this advice is for them. Mm-hmm. If you're looking to kind of just hang out on a couch and not know what the next steps are between this vacation you're coming up on and then the one you're going to book after that in a year from now, 6 months from now, if there's nothing in between that, then this advice is kind of neither here nor there. But I have a feeling it's not the people who have chosen to listen to a podcast called Inspire and Move.
Oh, this is the entrepreneurship category,
if
baby.
If we're here, then I would take this advice the same way I took it from my friend Arthur yesterday, where if you want something to change, if you need something to move in your life, then you need to get into the places and have the conversations that propel you to have those things move, because you can't do it by yourself.
Love that. I'm also really excited for our next date with Arthur.
I'm going to send him an email now that I think about it. He gave me his card, and it's, it's a very prototypical 85-year-old, most intriguing man in the world card, where it just has his name, his cell phone, and his email. Yeah. That's it. It says nothing else about the guy. But he's got me hooked. And I'm looking forward to having great conversations with him, hopefully for many years to come. I'd love to set up a follow-up date. And I mean, who knows? Maybe Arthur's the investor we need to kind of push our own needles in the right direction, right? It's
100%.
It's funny how things happen almost always when they're supposed to, and people
and when
come
you least
into
expect
your
them.
lives exactly when you least expect them.
It's just fascinating. I also want to invite him to Christmas. Just
yeah,
FYI.
Absolutely.
And I think, again, another little reminder, guys, especially in, we record this, it's about a week and a bit before Christmas, it's December. So if you are listening, maybe also use this as a little gentle reminder to practice a random act of kindness.
Say hello to somebody who might need to just hear somebody else's voice.
100%, or buy somebody online a coffee, or we have something that we're going to be doing this upcoming week for our gym community that we've been talking about actually for months, and we're really excited about it. Just that is a little random surprise and delight. I also love that yesterday with Arthur, without you and I even chatting or literally confirming that we were going to do this, both of us had the exact same thought that we really wanted to pick up his tab. And, thankfully he didn't order a bottle of really crazy champagne and caviar and a tomahawk steak, but we both really wanted to do that. And then when you quietly said that to the server, I loved that I also had the same thought. And that actually felt really good. And I think if you listen to the most recent episode that came out on the Inspiring Move podcast that Matt and I recorded together, we really talked about, experiences versus tangible gifts and season of giving, just different thoughts there, and how you can essentially, pay it forward and do something kind for somebody else. And man, taking our own words and putting it into practice yesterday, we walked out of that hotel feeling so good. A, because we met this fascinating human. B, because he had so many incredible things to say. But C, that we did something nice that hopefully really made his afternoon and his evening and weekend. And that felt really nice. So sort of your little takeaway nuggets for today is to practice kindness and just be a kind person. And number 2,
get in the damn room, because if you're not in the room, you're not in the deal.
That's right. Woo!
It's good stuff.
Love that.
Yeah.
And
thank you, Arthur.
I think this episode we should just dedicate to Arthur.
Our boy Arthur.
Yeah. And if you haven't watched The Holiday, you should definitely watch that, because that is one of my favorite Christmas movies.
It might have been him, for goodness sake.
It could have been.
Right down to the glasses, for goodness sake. Wow.
Well, thanks so much for listening, guys. And just your reminder to be a nice person, be a kind person, practice kindness. And we love you, we appreciate you, and we will see you again soon.
Have a good day, guys.
Bye. Thank you so much for listening. If you loved this episode, it would mean the world to me if you took 30 seconds and shared this on social media, send it to a friend, or leave a 5-star review. There is power in community, and I am so grateful to have you part of mine.